Evaluation question 2. How effective is the combination of your main product and ancillary texts? So for my ancillary texts, I chose the listings magazine and the newspaper advert, which I really enjoyed creating. Overall, I believe that they would be both highly effective if they were used to advertise my documentary, which was also very evident from my audience feedback. I got very positive feedback. They all majoritively said that they were recognisable in the way that they were a listings magazine because I'd used the general conventions. My aim when creating them was to use very synergistic elements from my documentary that were easily applied to the listings magazine advert. For example, my images were stills from the documentary. I felt that by using them, it would provide the audience with some insight into what was happening in the documentary. For example, the image of Dan and I laughing, it showed the location, who would be in the documentary, and it showed what kind of feeling you'd get. We were both laughing, so that's kind of the feeling that people would get when they were watching it. The colours that I used when creating them were kind of blues. It got blue background with both of them because I felt that they were quite neutral colours. They weren't in any way overpowering. However, in the listings magazine, I did have the yellow block boxes, which were used for main points like main quotes and important information, and also to show that it was a new product. So I felt that those were both elements that have proved to be very effective when creating a listings magazine, because there was something that was commonly found, because it was something that the audience would use to know when to watch the programme. In terms of language, I suppose I tried for the listings magazine to make it a little bit more chatty and relatable. For example, I started off the article with, "Remember that old pair of Levi's you threw out 10 years ago, or your auntie's dress you sent to the charity shop? Well, maybe you should have kept hold of those, because old is the new." Whereas for the newspaper advert, I tried to take a more factual stance, or no, maybe not factual but opinionated stance, with an interview. So I believe it holds great importance in terms of remembering who we are as a country. British fashion should be celebrated, and it will always inspire us. And then I dropped in maybe a few fashion names like Anna Wintour, and a little bit about Britain's take on vintage. I felt that was the kind of language that should be used in the listings magazine and newspaper article. In all three of my products, I used the same title, well, similar at least. So the revival of vintage was for the listings magazine, and then vintage revival for both the documentary and the newspaper advert. They all had the same fonts, so that therefore, it follows through the right style, so then there's continuity within them. And however, in the listings magazine, I've got an exclamation mark. It makes it a little bit more dramatic, more like an article that you'd find in a magazine of sort. Whereas in the vintage revival newspaper advert, you've got questions surrounding Brexit, something that you'd find in a newspaper. it's a topic of conversation at the moment, that in something that you will definitely find in a newspaper, which is what I wanted to show, because it's a convention that you generally see.